Hi, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Our topic for today is this new index futures, which is F4GM index futures. Now, I'm going to introduce you to a new index futures. I wouldn't say that it's very new because it has been launched for more than half a year, but many of you might not really aware about this index futures itself. So today I'm going to introduce to you, and maybe you are going to see that is there any opportunity for you to capture via this index futures itself or not. So this index futures itself is a very interesting index futures, which is they are looking at the socially responsible itself. So like previously we have some in things like CSR. So nowadays we are going to look at other part of it rather than CSR, which is not really can be quantified, but in terms of the new terms, it is easier for them to be quantified. So let's start with this index futures itself, and before I can really start with this futures index, how you are going to trade it, I need to start with new terms. But before that, if this is your first videos, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channels and on your notification bell. My name is Ting Ting. As usual, we need to start with a disclaimer. Our topic for today is only meant for education purposes. There's no buy or sell call. Now, as I mentioned to you before, I can really start with the index futures itself. I need to start with the terms called ESG because there's some relevance between ESG and the index itself, because the index derived technically from this ESG. So what is ESG? ESG is a very in thing. It's like today, do you know what is MIA? Sometimes people ask you, hey, what's MIA? Some of us, maybe I'm older generation, I might not know some of the terms, aka what is this. So if we are going to know, ESG itself is also another in things, another terms, a jargon. I wouldn't say a jargon, in terms that people are using. So ESG itself stands for E, stand for S, stand for G. So you can see that E stand for environment, S stand for social, and G stand for governance, meaning the company responsibility towards the environment itself. Easy for you to identify anything related to environment. The company responsibility itself, their company responsible itself towards the social and towards the company itself, how they run the company, so in terms of governance. So I'm going to give you some example in terms of the environment, social and governance. Then it's easy for you to identify. Anything related to environment, let's say for example, air and water pollution, easy for you to understand, right? Once you see climate change, carbon emission, deforestation, etc. Your social from workplace health and safety, human rights, customer and product responsibility. From governance itself, executive compensation, shareholder rights, company leadership and management. There are so many other examples. But the most important thing is for you to categorize. Remember, anything related to environment, anything related to social itself, anything related to the company itself, the governance itself, then it will be easy for you to recategorize the ESG. Now, it's important for us to understand this ESG because the index itself, the index futures F4GM derive basically from this ESG. Now, the next thing that we need to understand is there's a scoring system. There's a scoring system to see whether the company itself qualified to be included in the index itself, which is the underlying F4GBM. Then from F4GBM, which is the underlying, we derive our futures products, which is the F4GM. So they have this scoring, this ESG score itself to determine whether the company is qualified to be included. So they based on these 14 themes, can you see from supply chain environment, biodiversity, until customer responsibility, until anti-corruption, until tax transparency, the whole thing, 14 themes. About 300 indicators, but it's quite complicated because they are going to compare industry by industry itself. Meaning you cannot use, let's say for example, from finance itself to compare with other industry. So they are going to have some comparison within the industry itself, because not all the industry having the same criteria. So different criteria they are going to apply for different. So there's about 300 indicators, very complicated, but mainly starting with these 14 themes. Now the details of it, I'm going to publish it on the description section. You can go and click and understand, because they have a lot of the common Q&A. Once you understand the whole Q&A, I guarantee you'll understand how they derive the ESG score. And basically for an emerging market, you need to score 2.9 out of 5, meaning the highest score will be 5 points. So you score 2.9 out of 5, then you are going to be qualified in this ESG index itself. Now, so the next thing, once you understand about ESG, then it's the time that we can understand about the underlying, the parents itself. So this F4GM is the FTSE4Good Bursa Malaysia Index. Now I'm going to look at these futures itself. They launched on 12th of December 2022. So you can see from December until now it's about half a year. At the point that I'm preparing these slides is mid of June. So you can see that it's half of a year. From 12th December until this year itself. It's quite new. That's why many of you will start to ask me about this index futures itself. That's the reason why I'm trying to cover this. And some of you might not aware. Later I'll let you know what is the advantages of trading between FTSE4Good Bursa Malaysia Index futures compared to, like, let's say, for example, FKLI itself. Now, the second important information that you need to understand is the correlation. This F4GM correlation with FBM KLCI is very high. Meaning, let's say, for example, if today FBM KLCI up by 1%, F4GBM tends to be up by 1% as well. So their correlation is very high. So you can do a comparison, then you'll understand what I'm trying to say. So in a way, you also can interpret as it can be a replacement. Let's say, for example, if today you decided not to trade FBM KLCI, you can choose to trade F4GBM. So meaning this underlying is FKLI. If you do not want to trade, you can go and choose to trade F4GM itself. Now, the next part that you need to understand, the number of constituents, there's no capping. You can see, unlike FBM KLCI, you know that there's only 30 index members, meaning 30 companies in this index itself. If you have the 31st, you need to kick out one that only replace this 31st. Always they are going to take the top 30 only. But for this F4GBM, a bit unique. They don't cap it. Meaning what? So long as you reach the score, the requirement score of this ESG score, which is 2.9 at this moment, you are qualified to be included in this index members, F4GBM index member itself. There's no cap. Now, the revision, they revise which members qualified. They are going to revise twice annually. So it's like your FBM KLCI, it's like your mid cap itself, the index, the June and December both. Now, the constituents right now, as per 31st of May, is 98. Can you see very odd figures? It's not rounded figures like 30 or 70 for your mid cap. Here is anything that you qualify, any companies that qualify, reach the score, the ESG score that being required, they can be qualified in this index itself. So right now it's 98. Right now, mid of June, they revised again. If I'm not mistaken, they included, excluded, net is they added 1. Right now it's 99 as per now. Initially, they launched that time, if I'm not mistaken, in December, right, is about 80 plus. I can't recall the numbers, maybe it's 87 if I'm not mistaken. Then subsequently increased the second revise we reached 98. Then right now the third revise, if I'm not mistaken, is somewhere 99. So these are all the important information before I move into futures itself. Now, these are the top 10 constituents based on the index members as per the close of 31st of May. You can see that we have Malayan banking, public bank, majority of are from financial itself. So Malayan banking, public bank, CMB group, then you can see Hong Leong. they take out about 30% of it, of this. So 4 companies out of the 10 companies, these are all your top 10 constituents. Now, let's do a very quick comparison between FKLI and F4GM. So for those who are very familiar with FKLI, you will find this F4GM very easy because majority of the contract specification, they are the same. Later, I'm going to show it to you, including the trading hours, they are the same. Unlike a CPO compared to your FCPO and FEPO, although it's crude palm oil, their contract specifications slightly different. But here, these two, generally, they are quite similar. So you can replace. So I'm going to share with you, for example, the underlying instrument for FKLI is FBM KLCI. For F4GM is F4GBM. So it's easy for you to understand. And you can see that the contract multiplier, the contract size is times 50. Both also times 50. You can see, meaning 1 point, you get 50 ringgit Malaysia, or you lost 50 ringgit Malaysia. Index as per 31st of May, you can see that it's 1,387 for your FBM KLCI, and for F4GBM is 820. The margin, but the margin a bit different because FKLI right now the requirement is 4,005, but F4GM requirement is only 2,002. It's exactly half of it. So meaning, if you are going to get yourself started in futures trading, you find that here the barriers a bit high for you to come into futures market. You can try to look into the F4GM. Now, I know that the liquidity is an issue. Definitely, without doubt, we know that liquidity is an issue. But if you are not going to trade many contracts, they have the market makers. Trading one contract shouldn't be any issue for you as a retail. So you can have a look and see. You can see the F4GM is 2,002, but FKLI we require 4,500. So slightly different in terms of the margin requirement. The contract size, you're going to take the index times with 50, and this one times with 50, so you're going to see that this is about 70,000. Right now, the full contract value is about 41,000. So the bigger part, the bigger advantage will be definitely in terms of the margin requirement, meaning the barriers for you to enter the futures market is being reduced tremendously. Half, at least half. Definitely, in terms of the disadvantages, it's definitely in terms of liquidity. But if you're not going to trade many contracts, the impact is not big for you itself. Now, the rest of the details of the contract specification, you can go to bursamalaysia.com. You go to trade, you go to derivative. You're going to see the details of the contract specification. Then you will be able to understand. But I can say that generally compared to your FKLI, except the underlying difference, except the underlying difference, I would say easily more than 90% of the contract specification will be the same. So for those who are trading FKLI, it's easier for you to continue to trade from there. Clear? So before the end of the session, I hope that this index itself will benefit, especially for those who are going to look into investing in those companies that is responsible in terms of either from environment perspective, in terms of social perspective, or in terms of governance perspective. It will help you to gauge as well. So I hope that today's class will help you in your trading itself. Now, before the end of the session, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channels and on your notification bell. And remember to give us a thumbs up. And my name is Ting Ting. I'm going to see you in our next video. Bye-bye.